Hello there guys, and welcome to this Explain 11 video. We are currently situated at Kilo Alpha Bravo Quebec or Albuquerque International Airport, New Mexico, USA. This video will be a full review of the Just Flight Piper 28R Turbo Arrow 3 and 4, which was recently released by Just Flight. Let us begin by taking a look at the 3D exterior modeling and texture work, and as you can see, the guys at Just Flight have done a phenomenal job really modeling this aircraft. If you look at all the details here, the landing gear, the application of PBR, reflection on the glass, the very realistic looking blade here, everything really is looking pretty good in terms of the texture work, the reflection of the glass, the detailed wing here in terms of the bolts and all the markings and stickers, the area here where you actually step on to get onto the aircraft. Everything really has been done with a lot of care, and I've pointed all of these things out when the Piper 28 by Just Flight came out some time ago. The interior of this Piper 28 is simply outstanding. Just Flight has done a phenomenal job in creating a high-fidelity replica of the Piper 28. High-resolution textures, very detailed, proper application of PBR, and the results are outstanding. If you look here at the flooring, the bolts here, the yoke, look at the reflection of the yoke, and the rust here. Let's move the yoke a little bit here. Very fluid movement again of the yokes. Everything really has been done. The rust on the panel here, the texture work is really a work of art, and as you can see here on the windshield here as well, it's looking very realistic, very immersive. The reflections are done very well indeed, and the same thing goes for the back of the aircraft. Let's move here and take a look again. They've spared no effort into making this aircraft look absolutely gorgeous all around, from the outside and the inside. Here are the seats, the leather seats here. Really very well done in terms of the texture work. And this is now, I think, kind of the standard from Just Flight. They just really create beautiful looking aircraft in terms of the exterior and interior 3D modeling and the texture work. In order to help manage the aircraft, Just Flight has developed an easily accessible control panel, and quite functional in my opinion. You can toggle the aircraft doors from within the control panel. This one is the aircraft door and this one is the cargo door. You can bring up the GNS device for easy access during flight perhaps, and if you're suffering from lower frame rates, you can disable the windshield reflection and the instrument reflection as well by clicking on these two buttons. I'm not going to cover everything, but let's take a look at the most important features. The auto fuel switch. Now the Piper requires that you switch the fuel tank every 10 minutes to keep the balance correct in the aircraft. So this is an auto fuel switch. If you turn this off for increased realism, you will need to switch the fuel tanks down here every about 10 minutes or so. You can access the aircraft weight and balance. This actually brings up the default Explain weight and balance configuration window. And you can also tweak your sounds to your liking, master volume, avionics. This is a very useful feature. I quite like that. This button here will toggle the aircraft state from cold and dark to ready for takeoff. You have a checklist here, and you can either go with the non-dynamic checklist, or you can select a dynamic checklist here, which is very useful. Again, you have the flight computer here, which will give you the outside ambient temperature and lots of other information. We've got the logbook. This will summon the ground services, the default ground services in Explain 11, the chocks. And what I do also want to mention is this window here, which allows you to refill the fuel, recharge your battery, and it will also show you the vapor lock and spark plug falling, which is modeled in this aircraft. In terms of realism, I think this aircraft has some really extra layers of realism, which makes it a really fun aircraft to fly, including, by the way, the circuit breakers. So all the circuit breakers are modeled, and this gives you the ability to simulate different failures and practice different scenarios, which is a lot of fun. I don't think that the realism level is a match to, for example, the AccuSim features in the A2A fleet of aircraft. And I think it's maybe closer to the Reality Expansion Pack, but again, the Reality Expansion Pack offers a lot more features in terms of realism. So I think with time, Just Flight will improve this aircraft, and this is only a starting point, I think. It's looking very good, so I think now it is time for us to power up the aircraft and take it for a short flight around Albuquerque Airport and put it to the test. We are now ready to power up the aircraft and take it for a short flight, so let's go ahead and begin with the power up, and I am not going to be following the checklist. Fuel on the left tank and prop on full forward. First, let me turn on the battery and alternator. Prop on full forward. Anti-collision lights are on. And fuel pump on low. Mixture full rich. And then we'll bring it back. Throttle 1/4 of an inch open. And we have a good start. Mixture lean, and everything is looking okay. Right, I'll bring back the yokes. And pitos, I think we'll turn those on. I think we're good. Let's go ahead and release the parking brake and taxi to the runway. Another thing I really like in this aircraft are the sounds. The sounds are simply outstanding. The engine sound, the fuel pump sound. This is something often neglected by X-Plane 11 GA plane developers, but not on this aircraft. The sounds are quite phenomenal. Very nice indeed. By the way, this scenery of Albuquerque is that of Short Final. Short Final is Mr. X6. This is another payware from Mr. X6. He's done Salt Lake City, Utah, and this is another one. And let me tell you, one of the very best scenery I've seen for X-Plane 11. So if you like flying in the United States, this scenery is a must-have scenery. You must purchase this. And I think it's well worth the price. It covers a very large area at Albuquerque Airport and the surrounding area. All right, let's bring the aircraft to a stop here. Now we can do the run-up procedures and all that, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to turn on our landing lights. And let's see here. We're going to put the mixture on full rich. And we're just going to release the parking brake and depart Albuquerque. Our rotation speed is about 60 knots. So let's get lined up. All right, here we go. Bit of a rough takeoff here. Some winds. Positive rate of climb. Gears going up. And what we're going to do momentarily is we're going to do our usual tests Alright, let's go ahead and do a few tests here. So we're going to do a few turns. We'll do a turn to the right, and then immediately a turn to the left. Feels very nice indeed. And let's do a turn with a little bit of rudder. Tell you, it feels really nice flying this aircraft. Okay, how about we do a stall test? There we go, that's the stall warning. And the aircraft is stalling. Pitch down and give it power. And very accurate behavior in terms of the stall. I really like that. Okay, let's do a rudder test. And now the rudder test is just to see how fluid the modeling of the aircraft is done. So we'll do a right rudder. Very, very fluid. And the response of the aircraft is pretty good. Same thing for the left rudder. Nice indeed. Very nice indeed. Alright, so let's take a look at the function of the autopilot. And to engage the autopilot, we click on autopilot on, heading on. That will now take care of the heading. And in order to take care of the altitude hold button is the Piper logo here. So if I click it, now the altitude hold button is engaged. So what we'll do now is we'll adjust our prop and mixture. And now everything's looking good. As you can see, now we need to reduce power. Alright, and everything's looking good now for our flight. And I'll tell you, I really like this aircraft. I like how it behaves. I like its features. The look and feel definitely is done to a very high standard. The time has come for us to head back to Albuquerque and perform our final test, which is the approach and landing test. We are now about 10 nautical miles from the runway, and what we want to do is we want to go to about 75 knots for our approach and landing. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lower the landing gear down. I've tuned the ILS frequency so we can monitor the localizer and glide slope. And we're going to go to first degree flaps at this point. And we're going to pitch for about 75 knots for our approach and landing. And at this point, we're going to go for second degree flaps. And we're going to maintain 75 knots. And flaps full. And touchdown. Again, I like the roll sounds. They sound pretty nice. The sounds are done pretty well on this aircraft overall. I think one of the highlights of this aircraft are the sounds. The landing was a bit rough, but let me tell you, I really enjoyed landing this aircraft. I've done a few tests now, and I really enjoy flying this aircraft, landing this aircraft. I think it's a very immersive aircraft, and if you like, you can also turn off, some of the aircraft instruments, maybe the landing gear, and then try to, extend the landing gear manually. You have access to all of this stuff right from the circuit breakers here. Well, folks, this brings us to the conclusion of our video today. I hope that this was an insightful and useful review of the Just Flight Piper 28R Turbo Arrow. My concluding remarks are as follows. This is definitely a good start for a brilliant aircraft. I thoroughly enjoyed reviewing this aircraft, flying it, landing it. It's definitely a lot of fun. But again, there is a lot of room for improvement, and I sure do hope that the guys at Just Flight would not stop here, that they would continue to develop this aircraft and add extra layers of realism to it. I think that's what really is going to make this aircraft probably one of the best in the general aviation category for X-Plane 11. Folks, I do want to apologize that I wasn't able to prepare the giveaway for this video. I simply haven't had sufficient time to do so. I promise you that I will make it worthwhile in next week's video, or maybe sooner. So until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.